Kangri rawe kowe shingam ter penda dewa malu jungwene cheri singwon tenzin kya tsoi chape site pado tengyu chi. Taiwan, Tiananmen, and Tibet. The 3 T's, once known as China's biggest taboos. And as this list continues to grow, the causes and conditions for the Chinese government's downfall are also adding up. As it is said in both the wisdom of calculus and Buddhist philosophy, change is the only constant, and meaning all compounded phenomena are impermanent. My name, Chemi Lhamo. Born stateless in foreign lands, always yearning for a place to call home, brought up by families that were torn apart because of displacement, severed ties with family inside Tibet, for whom even urging the words "Free Tibet" is a crime. Tibet is my homeland. It's the homeland of 100,000 of us Tibetans in exile who cannot go back, and millions of Tibetans who cannot leave Tibet freely. This is my homeland that I've never seen in this lifetime, but will fight every single day to someday return home. The once beautiful Shangri-La has been listed the least free place on earth for the 4th consecutive year by Freedom House because of the political oppression, religious suppression, environmental degradation, you name it, by the Chinese government. The very government that is hell-bent on eradicating the whole Tibetan identity. With its cradle-to-grave project, they have now introduced 2 of its most insidious tactics. 1, separating our children from their families, and 2, stealing our DNA and our blood. Over 1 million Tibetan children, some even as young as 4 and 5-year-olds, are being separated from their families, forced or coerced into colonial boarding schools, aimed to eradicate the Tibetan identity from the Tibetan children, to take the Tibetan out of the child. Educational sociologist Dr. Yellow has first-hand research that noted within just 3 months, the Tibetan children are acting like strangers in their own homes. They no longer want to even hug their grandparents. You know, when the Chinese government was grilled at the United Nations regarding this, do you know what they responded? Take a look.
In Tibetan language, they do not have a specific term in the science field. As a result, for the education of these science disciplines, the education is conducted in the common language.
Let me tell you, TCV, the Tibetan Children's Village, with the school motto of others before self, and many other Tibetan schools in exile for decades have been educating, implementing the Tibetan values of Tawa Tenjung Choba Tseba Meba, meaning the view of dependent origination and the act of nonviolence do not harm, to tens of thousands of Tibetan children being educated with these values and teaching them Angzi and Tserik, you bet, math and science in Tibetan since the 1960s. Right now, as we share this moment, young Tibetan children in their own homeland are denied an education in their own mother tongue. Insidious tactic number 2. Imagine you are all Tibetans. Among every 3 people, 1 of your blood and DNA is already within the world's largest DNA bank, owned by the Chinese government without your consent. This is the same government that is trying to eradicate you and your people's complete existence. Companies from the free world are actually helping China do that. an American-based company named Thermo Fisher is actively aiding and abetting the Chinese government, selling them DNA sequencers and kits so that they can collect forcibly the blood and DNA of Tibetan people. It's no doubt that the authoritarian regimes are working together. The Chinese government's surveillance technology, genocidal tactics are all trialed on Tibetans and Uyghurs first and then exported out to severe human rights abusers. Like Venezuela. The dictator Maduro contracted ZTE, which is a Chinese telecom company, to create a national ID and card and payment system. With that, what they do is collect individuals' private information like your birthdays, social media accounts. In 2021, when Cuba had protests, the Cuban regime effectively shut down the internet and telephone services with Beijing's help. And when the United Nations spoke out on the colonial boarding schools, calling for an abolishment of the residential-style school system holding more than 1 million Tibetan children by the Chinese government, the Chinese government desperately responded by creating a UN state visit, inviting specific UN member states to come to Tibet. Mind you, Tibet has been on a by-design lockdown and has been an open-air prison for decades. But guess who got the special invite to go and see Tibet? It was other authoritarian allied nations like Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and so forth. This is how the authoritarian Inc. operates. We, the people, are also working together. Because when we organize, we can win. Countries have spoken out about the colonial boarding schools. Recently, the Secretary of State Department of the United States has called for visa restrictions on PRC officials that are responsible for the colonial boarding schools. Sanctions and actions, they work to hold oppressive regimes accountable, but they work even better when more countries put the pressure together because we are stronger together. We, the people, will continue to fight to hold the Chinese government accountable and anyone that aids them by profiting from the blood of our people. That includes you, Mark Casper, CEO of Thermo Fisher. Right now, on this stage, we are launching a global campaign calling on students around the world to make a pledge, sign this letter, to send Mark Casper one message. Mark Casper, stealing a 5-year-old child's DNA at a colonial boarding school is absolutely not okay, and students from around the world are going to rise and take action. So, Mark, you can go deleting frantically our comments on your social media pages, or you can engage in dialogue with us that actually aligns with your company's ethical standards. Today, I stand here in front of you as part of a global movement, as part of Students for Free Tibet, a network of 30,000 people around the world who come together, part of the Tibetan freedom movement. We organize trainings for not just Tibetans, but Uyghurs, Hong Kongers, Taiwanese, Chinese youth to come together, work together, and strategize to hold the Chinese government accountable. Because we recognize that we win when we work together. With the mission to amplify voices inside of Tibet, do you know what keeps people like me going? It's this. Tibetans inside Tibet, their resistance. Just recently, they held a Buddhist teaching, a Kala Chakra teaching. Over 1 million Tibetans gathered. This is in a place where even 10 to 12 people coming together brings room for suspicion, brings ground for imprisonment. They say you are inciting separatism. And the government actually send directives saying that you are not allowed to travel outside of your county. But still, people showed up. 60 plus years of occupation and oppression, but still my people are rising. This is the faith and spirit of our people that continues to remain unbreakable, unshakable. You know, this is also a moment to acknowledge what we have here is magical. I want you to take a moment to look around. Look to your left or right. Look to somebody. Make an eye contact. Acknowledge them. Give each other a fist bump if you could. This human touch is precious. What we have here is magic. It's something that the authoritarian regimes can never have or even imagine. You know what it is? It's humanity. So let us take on our shared responsibility to call for action and change. There's a lot of work ahead of us. Just last week, 154 United Nations member states voted yes for China to sit on the Human Rights Council. Shame. Let us all work together so that no authoritarian regimes like China ever get the chance, an undeserving seat, or ever rewarded for repression. Let us come together to strategize. Let us come together and celebrate our solidarity so that we can continue our fight, so that no one ever forgets the 3 T's. Every young person in the world fights to keep Taiwan free, remembers the resistance, and draws strength from the people in Tiananmen Square, the Umbrella Revolution. Fights to close every concentration camp in East Turkestan and free Tibet. Today, with the people of Taiwan, I want to send one message to the Tibetans inside Tibet. Can you help me with that? It's 2 simple words in Tibetan. It's Pe Gyalo, meaning victory to Tibet. Can you say it with me? Pe Gyalo. Say it together. Pe Gyalo. Pe Gyalo. Pe Gyalo. Free Tibet. Thank you.